It started like any other flight. 2 women carrying 7 suitcases. A quiet check-in at Heathrow, calmly checking in for a business-class flight to Dubai, no questions asked. The bags rolled through without issue, no alarms, no searches. They took their seats, settled in, and waited for takeoff. But inside those suitcases, beneath layers of clothes and toiletries, was something else, tightly packed and vacuum sealed. The kind of weight security scanners aren't programmed to find. No drugs, no weapons, just millions in clean, untraceable cash. This is the story of how a luxury courier network moved over £100 million from UK streets to Dubai, and the man who ran it all from behind the curtain. He didn't look like a kingpin, no underworld reputation, no flashy profile. Just a quiet man from Dubai with a diplomatic surname and a clean passport. But behind closed doors, Abdulla Mohammed Ali bin Bayat Alfalasi had built a system, one that would move more criminal cash out of the UK than almost any individual before him. He started small. On New Year's Day 2020, he flew from Heathrow to Dubai with 11 suitcases and declared the equivalent of just under £700,000. It wouldn't be the last time. Over 10 flights, he carried nearly £6 million himself, till he decided it was time to scale. The method was simple: cash in the UK, gold in Dubai. He charged clients, believed to include organised crime groups and drug traffickers, around 10% of the total moved. In return, he handled everything: couriers, logistics, front paperwork, and laundering on the other end. By the time he reached full capacity, over £100 million had passed through his network. To make it look legitimate, he registered a company, Omnivest Gold Trading. Couriers carried forged letters claiming to be authorized cash transporters on behalf of the business. Alfalasi booked all flights himself, collecting air miles, seating them in business class for extra baggage allowance, and even managing their itineraries remotely. But he stayed distant, always in Dubai, always silent. It wasn't until late 2021, when he made the mistake of traveling to London with his family, that things finally cracked open. She'd done it before, 3 times, without a hitch. Each trip the same: fly into Dubai, check into a resort, drop the bags, and head home. No questions, no inspections, just a few days in the sun and a few more at home. Easy money. But on the 4th run, something changed. It was October 3rd, 2020. Tara Hanlon, a recruitment manager from Leeds, wheeled 5 large suitcases into Terminal 5. She was traveling with another woman, Megan Reeves. They told check-in staff they were heading to Dubai on a girls' trip. The luggage, more than 60 kilograms in total, was packed as instructed. Cash bricks vacuum sealed and wrapped in coffee to block sniffer dogs. Clothes layered on top. Air fresheners stuffed around the edges. From the outside, nothing looked unusual, but Border Force officers were already watching. This time, a detection dog locked onto the scent. Hanlon was pulled into a side room. She claimed the bags held only clothes, said she didn't know what her friend had packed, that she was just going away for a break. Inside the cases, £1.9 million in notes. When officers took her phone, the real picture emerged. Messages to Clarke, the woman who'd recruited her. Notes on when to check in, what to say, how to behave. Evidence of earlier trips. 3 journeys over the summer, carrying more than £3.5 million in total. She'd also texted Clarke just days before, asking for more names, saying she needed 12 more people who were fit, can't talk, and reliable. Hanlon's arrest didn't just uncover one courier. It pulled at the thread, and the entire network began to unravel. But before we unravel how the network collapsed, we need to look deeper, at the woman pulling strings from Dubai and the couriers who did the lifting. Hanlon gave them names, but one name stood out: Clarke. She wasn't a courier. She didn't carry bags through airports or sit in departure lounges. She was the one making the calls. A former Sky TV executive assistant from Leeds, Clarke had relocated to Dubai with her husband and with their children. On paper, it was a fresh start. In reality, she'd already begun building something else. Later, police found messages linking Clarke to nearly every key courier. She handled flights, sent forged documents, and issued instructions through encrypted chat groups. On each run, she told the couriers what to pack, where to go, what to say, and what not to. Most never met her in person. The ones who did described her as calm, convincing, and professional. She carried herself like she worked for an embassy. And that's exactly what she told them. To maintain control, she created a group chat, Sunshine and Lollipops. Michelle Clarke didn't leave things to chance. If you were working under her, you were added to one place, a group chat called Sunshine and Lollipops. It sounded harmless, but behind the emoji-filled name was one of the most tightly controlled cash smuggling networks ever uncovered in the UK. Couriers were vetted and onboarded through Clarke personally. Once added to the group, they received detailed step-by-step instructions before each trip. Everything was planned down to the hour, just like found in the Hanlon phone messages. No phone calls, no outside messages, just encrypted chat and silence outside the group. Each runner was told to buy a pay-as-you-go burner phone, used only for that specific journey. After the return leg, they were told to wipe the device and wait. The next job would come when Clarke reached out again. All bookings ran through her. She paid for Emirates business class flights using Alfalasi's credit card. This gave couriers a higher baggage allowance, up to 4 large suitcases per passenger. In Dubai, handlers were waiting. The drop was always smooth. Hand off the bags, check into a resort, stay 1 or 2 nights, then fly home. Most never saw the cash again once it left their hands. Over time, the group grew. More names, more trips, but the same rules. Don't ask questions, don't speak to anyone, don't change the plan. Some followed it to the letter, others started bringing in friends, relatives, even partners, people they thought they could trust. And that's when the network began to fracture. They didn't look like criminals, no records, no gang tattoos, just influencers, ex-models, corporate types, people who blended in. That was the point. Most were approached directly by Michelle Clarke. Some were friends, others came through introductions, offered a quick job that paid thousands for just a few days away. No drugs, no risks, just suitcases. A company letter to explain everything. Joemma Larvin was the image of the operation. A former model known for her past relationship with boxer Joe Calzaghe. Clarke met her in Knightsbridge and offered £3,000 for a single trip plus a luxury stay in Dubai. She said yes, and later brought in her partner, Jonathan Johnson. Johnson worked in executive recruitment. On paper, he was cautious, sending texts before the flight about the luggage looking ridiculous, but he boarded anyway, helping Larvin carry nearly £3 million across 2 trips. Amy Harrison came through the same line, from Surrey, quiet, low profile. She took 3 trips, often helping with logistics, from packing to paperwork. Described as reliable, she didn't ask questions. Beatrice Orti was more involved. A 26-year-old from Fulham with a media background. She was hesitant at first, but Clarke reassured her. Gave her stamped certificates, flight bookings, and a role. Eventually, she was handling arrangements for other couriers, organising 16 trips alongside her own. Nicola Essen was different. Older, less digitally visible. Brought in through offline contacts. She flew business class and carried 19 suitcases across 3 journeys. Nearly £6.5 million passed through her hands. There are few more couriers with low digital presences were also part of this operation. Mohammed Ilyas kept to himself. No entourage, no chatter, just quiet trips, solo flights, and sealed instructions. Megan Reeves joined through Hanlon. She said she was drowning in debt, and this was her way out. One trip turned into plans for 13. Stacey Borg moved in silence. No online footprint, no visible trail. But she flew often, always with heavy bags and forged paperwork in hand. And then there was Paige Henry, just 25, yet already trusted with more cash than most. 4 trips, over £8 million with no mistakes. Some told themselves it was legitimate, some didn't ask. But all of them believed one thing, that they'd get in, get out, and never get caught. They knew who to target. But to move that kind of cash, tens of millions in notes, the system had to be exact. Once a courier was confirmed, the process began. Cash was collected from gangs across the UK. Most of it is tied to drug trafficking, none of it traceable. It arrived at rented flats across London, workers' counting houses run by trusted contacts. No furniture, no cameras, just tables, scales, vacuums and plastic wrap. Bundles were sorted into 500,000 per suitcase. Each case was layered, clothes and toiletries at the top, bricks of sterling notes packed tightly below. Everything is vacuum sealed. The smell of money disguised with coffee grounds, mouthwash and scented dryer sheets. The method was solid, but what made it possible, what kept it going, was the system itself. UK airport security focuses on threats, explosives, weapons, drugs, items that could bring down a plane. It doesn't scan for cash. At Heathrow, suitcases are pushed through 3D scanners using computed tomography, the same tech used in medical imaging. If the software detects something dangerous, it flags it. Otherwise, the image passes through, unseen by human eyes. Cash isn't flagged. Under UK law, travellers must declare if they're carrying more than £10,000 in cash when leaving the country. But the system relies on honesty. There are no routine checks, no luggage scans for currency, and once you're airborne, no one's looking. That loophole, that silence, was what the network thrived on. Once in Dubai, it was different. Clarke gave each courier a fake authorization letter from Organised Gold Trading, printed on letterhead, stamped and signed. It claimed the courier was officially transporting cash for business. At the airport, they'd hand it to customs. The paperwork matched. The bags were waved through. Handlers met them at the terminal. The drop was quick. It was clean. And it worked. For months. But the network didn't fall apart because of one mistake. It collapsed because every courier, eventually, made theirs. Now let's go back to where we left off, at the arrest of Tara Hanlon. Because what came next wasn't loud. There were no press briefings, no leaks, no public warnings, just investigators working in silence, connecting names, tracing bookings, pulling data from seized devices. Each detail added to the map: flights, baggage weights, ticket payments, passport scans. And slowly, the outlines of the network began to form, one courier at a time. But above them all was the one name no one had seen yet. The first domino was Hanlon, but she wasn't alone. And once her phone gave them Clarke, the NCA followed the trail. The next to fall was Dijanek Kamarit, a Czech national caught at Heathrow just weeks later. He had £1.3 million in his luggage, same airline, same packing method, same forged paperwork from Organised Gold Trading. Then came Joe Emalavin and Jonathan Johnson, arrested at Manchester Airport in March 2022. By then, they'd already flown twice, August and September 2020, smuggling nearly £5 million between them. Border Force had flagged them months before, but by the time of their arrest, the NCA had enough to act. Amy Harrison, who flew 3 times with over £6 million across 15 suitcases, was caught in a sweep after Johnson and Lavin. She'd been part of the planning, not just carrying cash, but helping with bookings and packing. Beatrice Auti, who was another successful courier, had been arrested at her home. When her door was kicked in during the May 2021 raids, the NCA already had records linking her to Clarke and to Alfalasi. The same pattern repeated. Nicola Essen, a 56-year-old from Leeds, was pulled in next. She'd flown under the radar for months, until passenger records caught up with her. Muhammad Ilyas stood out for a different reason. He'd made 2 runs, but on one of those trips, a bag vanished in transit. It later turned up at Heathrow, still unopened, still packed, with £431,000 inside. That loss put him on the radar. And when he returned on another flight, Border Force officers were waiting. He was arrested on arrival. Low profile or not, his role was already documented. And like the others, the path led straight back to the core. Each courier's arrest unlocked the next. Same type phone messages, booking data, email receipts. It all led upward, to the same flight account, the same credit card, the same company letterhead. And behind it all, one name kept coming back: Abdulla Alfalasi. But there was a problem. He was in Dubai, out of reach, untouchable until he wasn't. For months, his name sat quietly at the center of the investigation. But he was in Dubai, and no extradition was coming. So the case stalled at the top. The NCA had built the evidence. But without Alfalasi on UK soil, there was no move to make. Then, without warning, he came to them. In December 2021, Abdulla Alfalasi boarded a flight to London, traveling with his wife and children for what appeared to be a personal visit. They stayed at a high-end apartment in Belgravia, owned by his in-laws. No aliases, no disguises. It's still unclear why he came. He may have believed he was safe, that his role remained invisible, that the arrests hadn't reached his name. But the NCA was ready. They moved in quietly around lunchtime. 3 phones were seized, and with them, the final pieces. Inside, photos of couriers' passports, messages planning handovers, itineraries, packing lists, and suitcase photos. Everything they needed, typed out, photographed, and confirmed. He was charged with money laundering. At Isleworth Crown Court, in the summer of 2022, the story reached its final act. Abdulla Alfalasi, the man who stayed in the background, the one who built the system, was finally sentenced. He'd pleaded guilty to removing criminal property, more than £100 million laundered out of the UK. The judge described the setup as a considerable network under your charge, and handed him a sentence to match: 9 years and 7 months in prison. A confiscation order followed, £2.5 million in assets seized, including a Mercedes G63, a Ford pickup, and 3 Rolex watches. It was all paid back. Every penny. Tara Hanlon, the courier whose arrest cracked the case open, received 34 months in prison. Judge Karen Holt said she'd been vulnerable, but knew what she was doing. Zdenek Kamarit, a Czech national caught with over £1 million in cash, was sentenced to 2 years and 10 months. Joemma Larvin was given 24 months, suspended for 2 years with 200 hours of unpaid work. Her partner, Jonathan Johnson, received a 12-month suspended sentence. Amy Harrison and Nicola Essen were also given suspended sentences after pleading guilty and cooperating. Beatrice Otti, more deeply involved than most, received the longest sentence of the couriers, 42 months behind bars. Other remaining couriers await sentencing. Michelle Clarke, the handler at the center of it all, remains under investigation. She hasn't left the UAE since late 2020, still barred from travel and still wanted by UK authorities. The case exposed a network that used airports like a motorway. No threats, no weapons, just suitcases packed with cash, and a system that let it pass through undetected. What do you make of this case? The money, the method, the sentences. Did justice go far enough? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you want more real stories like this, subscribe, turn on notifications, and follow us here. There's always another case to uncover.